Okay, hi everybody. Just going to continue on with what we were talking about with the discursive piece that you're doing. One of the big things you have to understand is it's not formulaic. A lot of you have come to me and said, how do I write the topic sentence? How do I write the link-in sentence? It's not like that. That is a persuasive essay. You're not writing a persuasive essay. You are writing something that is conversational in style. It's like you and the reader and having a conversation. And on that note, I need to bring your attention to the fact that this is an audio. You are writing a speech. So you do need to add those speech elements to it. You need rhetorical questions. You need to appeal to pathos, ethos, and logos. You need to use things such as tricolon and other rhetorical devices that you know to engage the reader, to engage the listener. Speak to your English teacher if you don't understand all the rhetorical devices so that you can be given those so that you know how to use them. Okay, back to the discursive itself though. So you can write in first person narrative. I know some of you have said that you don't feel comfortable with that because it's not what you've been doing with your essays. But remember, you're not writing an essay. Your persuasive essay, when you write those next year, are still going to have that academic voice. This one doesn't have that academic voice. It is more personal in nature. You can also consider moving from first-person narrative to second-person narrative. So you're bringing the reader or the listener in, you're inviting them in, you're saying, you could consider this, you could do this. Now, even the way I am delivering this particular video has elements of the discursive because I'm talking to you. I'm treating this like a conversation. I'm imagining that you're right here in the room with me, listening to me as I do this. So you want to look at the discursive as moving through the reactions you have to the key idea and to the questions that you have about it as you start to move towards a clarification of those ideas. Now you have to remember this is a representation unit, so you are discussing the representation of the perspectives. So you do have to get that evidence in there and that analysis in there, but in a conversational way. It's not going to have as much evidence in it as the informative text. Now, on another note, I know many of you are asking, how many pieces of evidence do I need? Again, it can't be scaffolded. It's not a maths thing. It's not a persuasive essay. There's no formula to this. One of the hardest things for people to understand in English is there's no right or wrong. And the discursive essay is about you, or the discursive piece, let's not use the word essay. The discursive is about you showing that you understand there's no right or wrong. What there is your understanding, your deep understanding of the course content, so the novel and your related text, of text and human experiences and the rubric. And that all needs to come out. And the other 50% of the course is your writing skills. And the discursive, more than any other, I personally believe, more than any other text type that you're going to be required to write, is really about your writing skills. This is where you've got the opportunity to show your ability to manipulate language and use the power of language to explore and meander down the rabbit hole of the idea. And on that note, you can use the creative elements, and I'll come back to that shortly as well. The other thing is you can talk about opposing perspectives. I said it before about comparing and contrasting. You can talk about those opposing perspectives and opinions about the idea. But what you want to be doing is making sure that your language choices are descriptive and analytical instead of using language of persuasion. So often when we're writing our essays about like a persuasive essay that does the comparison and contrast, I'm actually going to pull up an example of one that I've done previously where Okay, I'm just going straight into the middle of an essay that I had written. This is obviously not discursive. This is a persuasive essay. And you'll see I have it's carrying on, it's halfway through the essay itself. It's like page 5. It's a very long essay. I do have a tendency to get carried away. But it says, however, society, so that is a word of argument. However, society did not heed Lang's warning, and a mere 20 years later, women were now legally required to join in with that servitude to the machine. For Orwell, this means a total loss of domesticity. Within 1984, such losses reflected in the invasion of Big Brother through the telescreens into the home that Chesterton argues must be free from rules. So this is, so far, it's not persuasive. This could arguably be discursive in nature, but then I change and go, however, in Orwell's, and then so I'm actually arguing against myself. However, in Orwell's dystopian universe, the home is a prison in which each member of society lived from the habit that became instinct, in the assumption that every sound you made was overheard, and, except in darkness, every movement scrutinised. The repetition of every creates, so you can see that this is kind of like your informative text. This is my T sentence. The repetition of every creates a sense that the family home no longer exists. Coupled with the past and children who portray their parents, the audience realises that in this world where both men and women must work lividly no longer exists. Unlike in Metropolis, where the mother figure is still present, ready to intercede and save humanity, in 1984 the mother ceases to exist. So in a way, there is some discursive elements in there, but you'll notice as I get further down here, so here I've got Winston's mother is a memory only, something from the past pre-Big Brother. Similarly to Maria, so I'm talking about two texts, and this is one of the things that you want to be doing. See, I'm moving from side to side, and that is quite discursive in nature. It's just that I use a bit of persuasive language, and I'll show you where we get to that. Similarly to Maria, Winston's mother had possessed a kind of nobility, a kind of purity, simply because the standards that she obeyed were private ones. In a depraved dystopian universe where everything is scrutinised, the anaphora of kind of nobility, a kind of purity, coupled with the private standards, renders Winston's mother antithetic, just as Maria is. Unlike Maria, though, she cannot save society, for Winston realises it was a false memory. The mother is lost to society. So all of that is a bit discursive, and then it goes back to a persuasive essay, because I say ultimately Orwell's dystopian universe reveals to his contemporaries a total loss of humanity. And then I go into an evaluative sentence and a linking sentence back to my question, and ultimately is a powerful word of persuasion. So I'm trying to convince the reader of something, which is not what discursive is about. But arguably, you could say this part is discursive in nature, where it's just moving from side to side. Okay, let's go back to here. So you have to understand, discursive is a different structure and a different style of writing. What makes it distinct is the fact that there is no full structure. Yes, it has an introduction, and it has body paragraphs, and it has a conclusion. It has analytical elements. It does have synthesis. It can be reflective, but the discursive and it can have evaluation, but it goes further than that. It can have intertextual references, and it can have your personal opinions to articulate what you think about the idea itself. So it's about exploring the ideas. It's about speculating on them. And it's about staying balanced on that fence so that you're not convincing the reader of one argument or another. It's quite possible you might want to end your conclusion with a question to your listener to make them think about the text and let them just think and come up with their own ideas on it. So how does it work in relation to the rubric? Because again, like what I said in the information text, the rubric is encompassed in the question. As soon as it says two perspectives of the one key idea you are exploring, and it says here the representations of the human experience, we know we're talking about the rubric. So all of these things from earlier apply, represent individual and collective human experience. I'm not going to go through all of that again because it's on that earlier video. So if you need more clarification, go back and watch that one. However, there are parts of this that I didn't go through completely before. Here, inviting the responder to see the world differently, to challenge assumptions and ignite new ideas or reflect personally. That's part of the discursive. You're putting out ideas and you're just inviting the reader to go on that journey with you without trying to convince them. You're wanting the reader to be challenged and to have new ideas. And you need to do that by actually questioning the ideas in the text. You also, okay, these other bits here and here I went through on the other video as well. I'm not going to go through those again. Likewise, we went through that earlier and we went through that earlier. There's one other part though, is this. That personal response. You're having a conversation with your listener. You want to get it. We want to know what you think. This is your moment to tell us what you think about the idea. How are you responding to the text and the human experience? Is the human experience in it different to your understanding of the human experience? What is it that, if you're writing about mother or father, what is it that you think is the role of a mother or father, and how are those roles reflected in society? Just don't forget, you've got to get the individual and the collective human experience in there. You need to get the human qualities and emotions associated with or arising from these experiences. And this is what you're doing in the discursive. You're exploring the idea, okay? And how it's represented. So you do still need detailed reference, you do still need analysis. Okay, so going through this, just to recap, it can't be structured for you. And I know, I get that that's what you want, but all those things, petal, peel, steal, alarm, they don't work. Alarm will work to a certain level. It will use it, if you use it properly as a responding matrix, use it to get down all your ideas, and then start writing, but don't write alarm paragraphs. Yes, you still need context in this. Yes, you're still trying to get to the composer's perspective, which is important, but remember you're exploring the idea. So I might quickly show you back here another one of the paragraphs so that you can see where it's persuasive, where it's discursive. So here, so someone asked me about linking words, and here I have it. When you look at my body paragraphs, I constantly start with looking at things from a different perspective. So I've got that one there, yet, then however, just here, however, and then another however. However is one of my favourite words. I think if someone was to do research into all of my essays, you'll see that it's probably the most common word used. This introduction is persuasive. It is not. It's typical of a persuasive essay rather than a discursive. It has the elements of the discussion in it though. And you'll notice I don't in the intro come to a conclusion, but the reason why this essay is persuasive is because at the very end I end with a very definite, this is what this is about, which is not what you put in discursive. So here, how I've got thus, both texts, that's not the kind of language you want in a discursive, unless the question is specifically asking for you to come to a conclusion. But something that will work for you is notice how I finish with a quote. So I have thus, both texts have failed in ensuring the composer's contemporaries critically reflect on their own society, not because the texts themselves have failed, but because the audience was already lost. The audience had already entered a stubborn, self-willed exile from the loving breast. That's a quote from 1984, and it works with the experience of the mother. Anyway, I hope that helps. You just need to get your voice across. Anyway, if you have questions,